Mikoyan Mig-29 is a twin-engine air superiority fighter jet developed by Mikoyan Bureau. The fighter jet is the competitor of McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle and the General Dynamics F-16 Fighting Falcon. The MiG-29 entered service with the Soviet Air Forces in 1982. While originally oriented towards combat against any enemy aircraft, many MiG-29s have been furnished as multi-role fighters capable of performing a number of different operations, and are commonly outfitted to use a range of air-to-surface armaments and precision munitions. The MiG-29 has been manufactured in several major variants, including the multi-role Mikoyan Mig-29M and the Navale's Mikoyan Mig-29K. The most advanced member of the family to date is the Mikoyan Mig-35. Later models frequently feature improved engines, glass cockpits with HOTAS-compatible flight controls, modern radar and infrared search and track IRSD sensors, and considerably increased fuel capacity. Some aircraft have also been equipped for aerial refueling. Following the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the militaries of a number of former Soviet republics have continued to operate the MiG-29, the largest of which is the Russian Air Force. The Russian Air Force wanted to upgrade its existing fleet to the modernized MiG-29 SMT configuration, but financial difficulties have limited deliveries. The MiG-29 has also been a popular export aircraft. More than 30 nations either operate or have operated the aircraft to date. As of 2013, the MiG-29 was still in production by Mikoyan, a subsidiary of United Aircraft Corporation UAC since 2006. In the MiG-1960s, the United States Air Force U.S. Air Force encountered difficulties over the skies of Vietnam. Supersonic fighter bombers that had been optimized for low-altitude bombing, like the F-105 Thunderkeith, were found to be vulnerable to older MiG-17s and more advanced MiGs which were much more maneuverable. In order to regain the limited air superiority enjoyed over Korea, the U.S. refocused on air combat using the F-4 Phantom multi-role fighters, while the Soviet Union developed the MiG-23 in response. Towards the end of the 1960s, the U.S. Air Force started the AirFX program to produce a fighter dedicated to air superiority, which led to the McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle being ordered for production in late 1969. At the height of the Cold War, the Soviet response was necessary to avoid the possibility of a new American fighter gaining a serious technological advantage over existing Soviet fighters. Thus the development of a new air superiority fighter became a priority. In 1969, the Soviet General Staff issued a requirement for prospective NE frontovые истребители PFI, roughly advanced frontline fighters. 5 specifications were extremely ambitious, calling for long-range, good short-field performance including the ability to use austere runways, excellent agility, Mach 2 plus speed, and heavy armament. The Russian Aerodynamics Institute ZAGI worked in collaboration with the Sukhoi Design Bureau on the aircraft's aerodynamics. By 1971, however, Soviet studies determined the need for different types of fighters. The PFI program was supplemented with the prospective NE Lyobki frontovые истребители PFI, more advanced Lithuanian tactical fighter program. The Soviet fighter force was planned to be approximately 33% PFI and 67% LPFI. 6 PFI and LPFI paralleled the U.S. Air Force's decision that created the lightweight fighter program and the General Dynamics F-16 Fighting Falcon and Northrop YF-17. 7. The PFI fighter was assigned to Sukhoi, resulting in the Sukhoi Su-27, while the lightweight fighter went to Mikoyan. Detailed design work on the resultant Mikoyan Product 9, designated MiG-29A, began in 1974, with the first flight taking place on October 6, 1977. The pre-production aircraft was first spotted by United States reconnaissance satellites in November of that year. It was dubbed RAM-L because it was observed at the Zhukovsky Flight Test Center near the town of Rogmanskoye. 9. The workload split between TPFI and LPFI became more apparent as the MiG-29 filtered into frontline service with the Soviet Air Force's Russian Voенно-Воздушные Sily VVs in the MiG-1980s. While the heavy, long-range Su-27 was tasked with the more exotic and dangerous role of deep air-to-air sweeps of NATO high-value assets, the smaller MiG-29 directly replaced the MiG-23 in the frontal aviation role. Introduction and improvements in the West. The new fighter was given the NATO reporting name Fulcrum A. because the pre-production MiG-29A, which should have logically received this designation, remained unknown in the West at that time. The Soviet Union did not assign official names to most of its aircraft, although nicknames were common. Unusually, some Soviet pilots found the MiG-29's NATO reporting name, Fulcrum, to be a flattering description of the aircraft's intended purpose, and it is sometimes unofficially used in Russian service. 10. The MiG-29B was widely exported in downgraded versions, known as MiG-29B-912A and MiG-29B-912B for Warsaw Pact and non-Warsaw Pact nations respectively, with less capable avionics and no capability for delivering nuclear weapons. In the 1980s, Mikoyan developed the improved MiG-29S to use longer-range ART-27B and ART-77 air-to-air missiles. It added a dorsal hum to the upper fuselage to house the jamming system and some additional fuel capacity. The weapon's load was increased to 4,000 kilograms 8,800 pounds with airframe strengthening. These features were included in new-built fighters and upgrades to older MiG-29s. 11-12. Refined versions of the MiG-29 with improved avionics were fielded by the Soviet Union, but Mikoyan's multi-role variants, including a carrier-based version designated MiG-29K, were never produced in large numbers. Development of the MiG-29K carrier version was suspended for over a decade before being resumed. The type went into service with the Indian Navy's Hinds Vikramaditya, and Russian Navy's Admiral Kuznetsov-class aircraft carrier. Citation needed. Mikoyan also developed improved versions of the MiG-29, named MiG-29M and MiG-29SMT. 13-14. There have been several upgrade programs conducted for the MiG-29. Common upgrades include the adoption of standard compatible avionics, service life extensions to 4,000 flight hours, safety enhancements, greater combat capabilities and reliability. In 2005, the Russian Aircraft Corporation MiG established a unified family of 4++ generation multi-role fighters, the aircraft carrier-based MiG-29K, frontline MiG-29M and MiG-35 fighters. Replacement. On December 11, 2013, Russian Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Rogozin revealed that Russia was planning to build a new fighter to replace the MiG-29. The Sukhoi Su-27 and its derivatives were to be replaced by the Sukhoi Su-57, but a different design was needed to replace the lighter MiGs. The previous attempt to develop the MiG-29 replacement, the MiG-1.4 demonstrator, failed in the 1990s. The concept came up again in 2001 with an interest from India, but they later opted for a variant of the Su-57. Air Force commanders have hinted at the possibility of a single-engine airframe that uses the Su-57's engine, radar, and weapons primarily for Russian service. 15. This has since been revealed in the form of the Sukhoi Su-75 checkmate. Sharing its origins in the original TFI requirements issued by Zagi, the MiG-29 has broad aerodynamic similarities to the Sukhoi Su-27, however, there are some notable differences. The MiG-29 has a mid-mounted swept wing with blended leading-edge root extensions. LER exit swept at around 40 degrees. There are swept tailplanes and vertical fins, mounted on booms outboard of the engines. Automatic slats are mounted on the leading edges of the wings. They are 4-segment on early models and 5-segment on some later variants. On the trailing edge, there are maneuvering flaps and wingtip ailerons. 16. The MiG-29 has hydraulic controls and the SAU-451 3-axis autopilot, but, unlike the Su-27, no fly-by-wire control system. Nonetheless, it is very agile, with excellent instantaneous and sustained turn performance, high alpha capability, and a general resistance to spins. The airframe consists primarily of aluminum with some composite materials specified and is stressed for up to 9 grams 88 meters/s superscript 2 maneuvers. The controls have soft limiters to prevent the pilot from exceeding G and alpha limits, but the limiters can be disabled manually. The MiG-29 has 2 widely spaced climb off-road 33 turbofan engines, each rated at 50.0 kN 11,200 lbf dry and 81.3 kN 18,300 lbf in afterburner. The space between the engines generates lift, thereby reducing effective wing loading, hence improving maneuverability. The engines are fed through intake ramps fitted under the leading edge extensions LER exits, which have variable ramps to allow high Mach speeds. Due to their relatively short combustor, the engines produce noticeably heavier smoke than their contemporaries. As an adaptation to rough field operations, the main air inlet can be closed completely and the auxiliary air inlet on the upper fuselage can be used for takeoff, landing and low-altitude flying, preventing ingestion of ground debris. Thereby the engines receive air through louvers on the LER exits which open automatically when intakes are closed. However, the latest variant of the family, the MiG-35, eliminated these dorsal louvers, and adopted a mesh screens design in the main intakes, similar to those fitted to the Su-27. 17. The MiG-29 has a ferry range of 1,500 km 930 miles without external fuel tanks, and 2,100 km 1,300 miles with external tanks. 18. The internal fuel capacity of the original MiG-29B is 4,365 liters 960 gal, 1,153 US gal distributed between 6 internal fuel tanks, 4 in the fuselage and 1 in each wing. For longer flights, this can be supplemented by a 1,500 liter 330 gal, 400 US gal centerline drop tank and, on later production batches, to 1,150 liter 250 gal, 300 US gal underwing drop tanks. In addition, the newer models have been fitted with port-side in-flight refueling probes, allowing much longer flight times by using a probe and drogue system. The cockpit features the conventional center stick and left-hand throttle controls. The pilot sits in a Zivas DK36 PM ejection seat. The cockpit has conventional dials, with a head-up display HUD and a Schell 3M helmet-mounted display, but no HOTA's hands-on throttle and stick capability. Emphasis seems to have been placed on making the cockpit similar to the earlier MiG-23 and other Soviet aircraft for ease of conversion, rather than on ergonomics. Nonetheless, the MiG-29 does have substantially better visibility than most previous Soviet jet fighters, thanks to a high-mounted bubble canopy. Upgraded models introduce glass cockpits with modern liquid crystal LCD multifunction displays MFAs and true HOTAs. Citation needed.